Okay, so I think everybody's really looking forward to the debates right now. I think because of what happened with Joe Biden, where he absolutely craters in a massive, absolutely massive way, where he was actually up like 0.2, 0.3 in the aggregate, and then he has the debate, and all of a sudden he's down 1, and then he's down 2, and then he's down 3, and he's down over 3 points before he ends up dropping out. And so debates typically don't have much of an impact on presidential elections almost ever, pretty much. They're kind of just like theater and that kind of thing, like statistically and everything. They don't really have any impact whatsoever. That seems to be like a result of the media response to it, but that seems to be kind of something. And had he had stayed in the whole time, we don't know how it would have lasted. It probably would have just gone away as the time went on. Or if he didn't do like his weird sort of like media run, his press run that he did, which is really bizarre. But here's a really interesting strategy. So it says Trump huddles with Tulsi Gabbard ahead of debate with Harris. So he's picking Tulsi Gabbard. Tulsi Gabbard is a liar, a fraud. She claimed to be a progressive supporting Bernie Sanders. She turned into like this Fox News person who's just like the craziest person you can imagine. She completely and fully sold out. And it's pretty crazy because it honestly went even further and faster. Like I thought I'd made a joke or something, and a lot of people were making jokes like this. It wasn't me, just me. But it's like, oh, like she's going to have a Fox News show in like X amount of time. But I didn't think it would happen that fast. And it was just like, whoa, it was just kind of crazy how fast it happened. And it almost happened in such a meme way where it's like, you can't even believe that it's real. That's how crazy it was. But it says, former President Trump has met with former Democratic Representative Tulsi Gabbard in recent days, huddling with the one-time presidential candidate who shared a debate stage with Vice President Harris in 2019. A Trump campaign spokesperson confirmed the former president has spoken with Gabbard, though they dismissed the idea Trump was engaging in traditional debate preparations ahead of his September 10th showdown with Harris. So Trump actually had done debate preparations with Chris Christie and Giuliani as well. They actually had Chris Christie, I guess, play as Joe Biden, like a fake Joe Biden. And he actually got to the point where Trump was actually like told him to stop because he was getting pissed because he was talking about his kids making money and he was getting so annoyed. With this quote, President Trump has proven to be one of the best debaters in political history. That is definitely not true, as evidenced by his knockout blow to Joe Biden. So we're going to disprove that right now. Trump campaign spokesperson Karoline Leavitt said in a statement, quote, he does not need traditional debate prep, but will continue to meet with respected policy advisors and effective communicators like Tulsi Gabbard, who successfully dominated Kamala Harris on the debate stage. Ooh, dominated Kamala Harris. Interesting wording. But this idea that Trump is a great debater is actually hilarious, especially in the general election debates. In that debate, I mean, he did nothing. He just didn't talk, which I guess is a good debate strategy in that scenario. But what we can see here is we can go back to the sort of Tulsi Gabbard attack, because the reason Tulsi Gabbard is being picked is because of this huge debate moment that she had. Everybody really remembered this debate moment. This is absolutely massive. So, you know, she's got the nice white suit on. She's got her chest oiled up, looking good. And basically what she's going to end up doing here is she's going to kind of drop the hammer on Kamala. And so just to give us a kind of flashback, and for anybody who didn't see this live, go ahead and check this out and see Tulsi Gabbard's attack on Kamala Harris and her response.
Congresswoman Gabbard, you took issue with Senator Harris confronting Vice President Biden at the last debate. You called it a, quote, false accusation that Joe Biden is a racist. What's your response?
I want to bring the conversation back to the broken criminal justice system that is disproportionately negatively impacting Black and brown people all across this country today. Now, Senator Harris says she's proud of her record as a prosecutor and that she'll be a prosecutor president, but I'm deeply concerned about this record. There are too many examples to cite, but she put over 1,500 people in jail for marijuana violations and then laughed about it when she was asked if she ever smoked marijuana. She blocked evidence. She blocked evidence that would have freed an innocent man from death row until the courts forced her to do so. She kept people in prison beyond their sentences to use them as cheap labor for the state of California. And she fought to keep cash bail system in place that impacts poor people in the worst kind of way.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Senator Harris, your response.
As the elected Attorney General of California, I did the work of significantly reforming the criminal justice system of a state of 40 million people, which became a national model for the work that needs to be done. And I am proud of that work. And I am proud of making a decision to not just give fancy speeches or be in a legislative body and give speeches on the floor, but actually doing the work of being in the position to use the power that I had to reform a system that is badly in need of reform. That is why we created initiatives that were about reentering former offenders and getting them counseling. It is why, and because I know that criminal justice system is so broken, that I am an advocate for what we need to do to not only decriminalize, but legalize marijuana in the United States.
I want to bring Congresswoman Gabbard back in. Your response,
The bottom line is, Senator Harris, when you are in a position to make a difference and an impact in these people's lives, you did not. And worse yet, in the case of those who were on death row, innocent people, you actually blocked evidence from being revealed that would have freed them until you were forced to do so. There is no excuse for that. And the people who suffered under your reign as prosecutor, you owe them an apology.
Senator Harris.
Yeah, so as you guys just saw there, kind of looking back at it now from this kind of perspective, it doesn't hit necessarily as hard. At the time when it hit, it was crazy. It was everywhere. It was just blowing up. It was nuts moment, right? And this is, I think, after the situation where Kamala Harris just destroyed Joe Biden. That was like a perfect scenario for Kamala Harris because he really walked into her trap with the whole, that was your city council making the decision. And he was like, I didn't support the Department of Education doing busing. And it's like, dude, and then she brings up a personal example where she's like, hey, I was in a situation where we didn't have the integration. And he goes, that was your city council's decision. And she's like, yes, bitch. That's the whole fucking point of having the Department of Education doing it. The civil rights, generally speaking, the problem with leaving it up to states and municipalities, half the country is racist. They're not going to follow civil rights. That's why federally having the Voting Rights Act and these kinds of things, civil rights, is so important, is because it forces them. And I think the 14th Amendment had something in it too where it talks about how, there's like federal oversight of it as well. And so pretty much he walked into his trap and she fucking dog-walked his ass. Dog-walked him. It was crazy, right? It was probably the worst possible case scenario for Biden in that scenario because he walked into her trap and she just fucking destroyed him. In this case, Kamala Harris is the one who got destroyed. And so pretty much what happens here is Tulsi kind of delivers it kind of strongly. And then at the time, I think there was this heavy anti-prosecutor sentiment. It was really harmful to her at the time. Now I think the conversation has changed because Donald Trump is like this convicted felon. So I think the vibes and the energy has changed to benefit her. And so now any of the anti-prosecutorial stuff can't really hurt her just because of the environment, it's the climate, right? But at the time it was very salient to be anti-prosecutor. And none of the other people, Klobuchar was getting a lot of heat too because she had some kind of bad situations with that too. I think she might have been Attorney General as well. And she here tries to be like this. She tries to do the Chris Christie line. So there's this typical fight going on between governors who are executives and senators who are just these legislators, right? So senators, they don't really do anything. They just kind of, they're just kind of chilling and they just filibuster and don't do anything. They just eat bonbons, right? Whereas governors kind of have to act and have to actually be executives for the state. But here it just didn't really work. And then she kept trying to kind of pivot to personal positions on issues. I think her ways to respond here would have been either you respond with something to refute what she's saying on the personal cases, because I think in these debates, the personal moments are what really shine. And so for Kamala, when she really shone, it was like her talking about how, I was a little girl, I think is what she said, right? That was her thing that she had said. So she could have either refuted what she said on the personal cases, or she could have talked about personal cases where she did something good, like, Tina was a single mom who was on death row with 3 children, and I exonerated her or whatever. I found the evidence. Like, that would be an example of something good. Or the other strat would be just to go full non sequitur plus ad hom. You support Assad, you support bombing little children. Who are you to talk about putting people on death row or something? You don't care about kids dying, whatever. Just like it's complete non sequitur ad hom. Great strategy. That could have also been a strategy. But she completely failed. The Chris Christie thing just was a horrible idea. Remember, Chris Christie does it with Marco Rubio. He's like, oh yeah, I actually have to be a governor and do shit. You just have your 2 lines about Barack Obama. You just keep repeating like a robot. That's kind of the divide. Not a good strategy here. So now how this is going to play into 2024 in terms of her kind of helping out here, I honestly have no idea, because the attack of the prosecutorial thing is not going to work against Kamala Harris here. One, nobody seems to care on the progressive side. Two, just because the vibes are so strong. Two, Republicans are not going to be like, oh yeah, you were a hard prosecutor. It's like, what? They'll be like, oh yeah. It would be counterintuitive. So I'm not sure. And then we don't have enough evidence to be like Tulsi Gabbard is a good debater or anything special. Obviously, she's being chosen because of that one moment she had with Kamala Harris, right? That was the reason why she's chosen here. But I don't think there's any evidence that she's a particularly good debater or anything. She had that moment, just like Kamala had her moment that I think ultimately got her the VP slot. But it's pretty interesting to see. Also, I wanted to also go do a little flashback. Also, this is just interesting too. The gray line here is Kamala Harris. So Kamala, at this point, you can see is down here. It's hard to even load these numbers, honestly, from 2020. But you can see that Harris is at about like 6.8%, and then she jumps all the way to 14.2 from the debate moment. And because debates don't do anything, she falls off a cliff pretty shortly after, back to where she was just, not too long afterwards. So pretty interesting. But that debate moment for Kamala, where she destroys Biden, really helped her a lot. But a lot of people, I think, forgot. The polls all say that Hillary actually won this one says she won the first debate. I think she won all of them, honestly, but I just pulled this one up. I mean, I can't do like a full historical analysis of like every fucking thing that happened in 2020 and 2016, okay? But I think a majority of likely voters, 52% who watched the debate or said they followed debate coverage and news, said Hillary Clinton won the debate. And it's also important to note that it wasn't like, 52-48, it was close. No, it was 21% of them said Trump won and 26% said neither won. And I think he lost all of them, actually, like according to the polls. In 2020, this was the first debate. He lost this one as well. Biden getting 60% for good performance rating, Trump getting 32.9%. Same thing with policies. 66% said he had a poor performance, of Biden only 39.1%. And I think the numbers are pretty similar for the second debate. And then for the VP debate between Kamala Harris and Mike Pence, what you see here is Harris gets 69.3 for being a good performance, Pence 59.5. Pence's poor had a much higher rating here. So the thing is also, I think there were polls in here that said that Kamala had won by a lot in this debate as well. So Kamala is kind of like I think she's like probably maybe a decent debater. It's not exactly certain as to where she stands. I think that Trump is not a good debater. He actually hasn't had like a really good debate performances, especially numerically and statistically according to polling. So I think that Kamala Harris is going to kind of be in an interesting situation where there's going to be a lot of attention on this. By the way, Tim Walz did say in the interview with Kamala Harris for the VP slot, he said, hey, just to warn you, I'm a bad debater. That's what he said, not me. So I think he'd do really great in a debate against J.D. Vance, though. But there's going to be a lot of energy around this. It's going to be crazy. Hopefully they're doing debate prep. The good news is Trump is not a good debater. He has done really poorly in polls, pretty consistently in the general election ones. Even in the primary polls, I think he did poorly in terms of the debates. I think that the progressive idea is that, he won off the debates. No, he didn't. But, it'll be interesting to see and how much of an impact it's going to have on the race. It'll be really interesting to see. Typically, they have virtually zero impact on anything. Debates are just kind of for show. They're kind of for the public to keep people interested and, give them fast food. But typically, it doesn't really have any impact on the race. But with the race this close, I think it will have some impact. And honestly, the question of whether or not it's even possible for her to flop as hard as Biden did, I don't think it's possible, but we'll have to see. And let me know what you think. What's going to happen in a debate between Trump and Harris? So it'll be really interesting to see.